Guess what these bags are full of? I've been shopping. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is my weekly vlog for Monday, July the 15th, 2019, number 123. And this vlog is coming out a little later today than usual because technically I said good morning, but it's really good afternoon because we just got home from our weekend in a place about 2 hours to our west, where we spent the weekend doing a lot of quilt fabric shopping, and we also did a play at a Shakespeare festival town called Stratford, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. And of course, you saw in the teaser at the beginning my big bags. Those are full of fabric, over $1,300 worth of fabric. But it was my birthday weekend, so it's my birthday gift to myself. And before you ask, yes, I will reveal how old I am. I'm 62. I turned 62 officially yesterday on July the 14th. And I know, hard to believe, this is 62. Really? I always tell people, moisturizer, moisturizer, moisturizer. And you too can look this good at 62. Yeah, okay. And that's what I'm going to believe. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so I will reveal what's in those bags, but I'm going to do that in a separate video. It's going to be an episode on the Idiot Quilter, and that will come out probably a little bit later this week. I might actually get around to doing it later today, but we'll see. But there's a lot there to show you and to talk about. I'm also going to put up a video in the Idiot Quilter section that shows all the quilt stores I went to and gives you a little glimpse as to what they look like inside and outside. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, later this week, look for the notification of 2 new Idiot Quilter episodes. Okay, let me clear my throat. What do I want to show you first? I want to show you my show quilt. You know I've been working on this for quite a while. It is now done. Last week I went to the long arm place and I long armed the quilting pattern, and then I got it. I put the binding on, the labels in, the hanger for hanging it up is there, and it's all done and it's all ready for the quilt show in November. So you're getting a look at this first. It's a bit of a secret. Want to keep it under wraps until the quilt show. But for you, and I probably made a noise on the microphone because I just pulled it down off of me. Sorry about that. Make sure I've got the right side up. And here it is. Pull it back a bit and up. And I don't know if I can get the whole thing in or not because I can't see what I'm doing. But there it is. So I am very proud of this. I had to design it myself. Yes, it is busy. Yes, it is bold. And that's what I was going for. And the back looks like that. And you can see the quilting a little bit in that. I used a fairly subtle thread for the quilting. And the pattern of the quilting, which may not have been picked up on the video, is little lines. You know, the kind of thing you see when you see an artist's rendition of a butterfly flying, the little trail marks of where the butterfly has gone. Well, that's kind of what I've simulated on this quilt. And as I said, I did it all on a long arm. I did it all myself. So I'm very proud of that. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. I'm just pulling up my microphone here on the table. And so let's jump right into the YouTube channel of the week. This has nothing to do with crafting, nothing to do with quilting, nothing to do with shopping. It has everything to do with abandoned houses. It is done by a young man named Noah. Don't know his last name, but he calls himself, or he calls his channel anyways, Noah Nowhere. And he goes into abandoned homes and buildings and films what he finds in them. And he comes from my area somewhere in Ontario, Canada. which makes it kind of even more interesting to me, because he doesn't identify where these buildings are that he goes to, but they could be ones right in my own backyard. Who knows? So take a look at this. This week's YouTube channel is called Noah Nowhere, and this is a really kind of interesting YouTube channel because this is a young man who goes around Ontario, which is the province I live in Canada, and checks out abandoned malls and abandoned buildings and abandoned houses, and tries to piece together who might have lived there and what their lifestyle was like. It's kind of spooky because it's almost like a ghost hunter type of show, but he's not looking for ghosts. He's just finding these pieces of real estate that apparently look like people have just walked away from. In many cases, there's still some personal items still in these abandoned houses and stores. So if you like this kind of video where you do some exploring in old properties, then Noah Nowhere is the YouTube channel for you. So as usual, I have a link for Noah Nowhere in the show notes below, as are the links for this week's book and for my vlog as well. Actually, there isn't a link for the book, and I'll explain why in just a moment. There is also, not this week, a link to the latest Stephen and Walter Live. We had thought, and I took the equipment with me, of doing Stephen and Walter Live at our usual time yesterday, which was Sunday at 4 o'clock. But we went to a play in this town called Stratford, which I mentioned a moment ago, and we'll talk more about later on. And by the time we got back from the play, it was time to go to dinner, and so we never got around to it. So we've missed a week. We haven't missed a week in a while, not since we've been in Australia. So we will have one next week, and we'll talk a lot more about our adventures this past weekend on Stephen and Walter Live. So no link to that in the show notes below, simply because there's no Walter and Stephen Live, or Stephen and Walter Live. Okay, so that takes us to what's pissing me off this week. Well, this just happened on our little weekend getaway. We stayed in a college residence. If you're looking for deals on accommodation that are kind of no frills, no thrills, but usually clean, and they've got a bed, and some of them have, like the one we had this weekend, it was a suite, so it had a little kitchen area as well as 2 bedrooms, the bathroom and everything, then you might want to check out a college or a university that might be close to where you are headed. Oftentimes they open up the dormitories in the summertime, when the students aren't there, of course, at reasonable prices as hotel rooms. And they run it like a hotel, most of them. Some of them even will include breakfast in the morning or coffee, and they usually have maid service as well at a very reasonable price. So that's where we stayed. Now, lots of people know about these, and lots of large groups know about these because it's cheaper, especially for traveling sports teams. And that's what my pet peeve is this week, what I'm pissed off at. While we were there this past weekend at this particular dormitory, there was a busload of kids came in. Now kids, they were probably late in their teens. Some of them might have been college age, I'm not sure, but it was a girls' baseball team. They had their parents with them, they had their families with them, they had a whole lot of stuff they were lugging with them too for whatever, it might have been a tournament, and that's great, that's fine, I've got nothing against that. What I do have is the team mentality that seems to happen when you have a large group like that in a hotel, and maybe especially in something like a dormitory that is probably designed more or less for students. They take over. They have very little respect for the other guests who aren't part of their team. So they make a lot of noise at night, just by the nature of it. I don't think they're doing it necessarily on purpose, but especially when they're young people, they do make a lot of noise at all hours of the day, because there's a whole group of them all together, and they take over the facilities, and you can't get near the facilities. They're also a little bit rough, at least this group was, on the property as well. They had a lot of equipment with them, and they seemed to be bringing it in on large wagons. Wagons like you pull kids around, but the elaborate ones that all have canvas sides and things like that. I mean, I haven't bought a wagon in years, so maybe that's just the standard type of thing. And they're bringing them up the halls. They just made a mess of the floor in the halls, like black skid marks, mud, everything like that tracked into the place. And yeah, that kind of stuff does happen in any kind of hotel situation. But I believe that when you're in a hotel, just because you're paying for it, no matter what you're paying for it, for the night or the time you're staying there, I think you got to respect the building a little bit. In a sense, it's rental property. You're renting it, and there should be repercussions if you damage it, and there usually is. But these young people don't seem to get the idea, and I don't really blame the young people. Young people are young people. That's what they do. But they have their parents with them. And I would like to think the parents would take some control. And these ones, no, they didn't. In fact, at one point in the evening, I think on the Saturday night or Friday night, there's a lounge area in this particular residence we were staying in, and it has a kitchen in there, and it has some vending machines, and it has, some lounge-like chairs, and couches and things like that. They're in there. They're drinking their wine. They're drinking their beer. The kids are running around, the whole bit. It's like they were in their rec room at home. Well, I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't do those kind of things in their rec room at home because they wouldn't want to wreck their furniture. Feet are up on tables. Feet are hanging over the edges of couch ends. Things like that. And they're basically having a party. And I get it. They're having a good time and all that kind of thing. But, you have to be aware of the fact that you're in a rented accommodation and there's other people in there as well. So I'm just saying, have your good time, have your fun, but have it within reason. I'm sure these kind of places kind of cringe when they get a large group like that coming in because they probably know there's going to be some damage done or there's going to be some disruption. I mean, we never complained about it or anything. I mean, it didn't really bother us that much, but it could have. And I'm just going back to what I said about our trip to Ottawa a few weekends ago, and we stayed in a residence there, and there was all those grade 8s, the graduating classes, all there for a trip and things like that. Burning the popcorn in the room, running up and down the halls, things like that, taking over the place. It does piss me off. But what pisses me off about it the most is the fact that kids will be kids. Can't do much about that. But if you're there as an adult, as a chaperone, as their parents, I think you can rein them in. But it seems to me, at least in this day and age, and I am 62, so it makes me sound like I'm 62. In my day, my parents would have beaten me if I had been out of control. Modern parenting doesn't seem to have the same stance on that idea. So anyways, that's what pisses me off this week. Okay, moving on. Product review. Well, I bought a lot of fabric, but I did buy some crafting stuff. Now, I don't need any more crafting stuff. As you know, I have a room full of this, and I'm trying to use up what I have. But we went to a surplus store. There's a couple of them in the area we stayed in, and we've been to them before. And this one particular surplus store often has all kinds of scrapbooking, card making, mixed media items at most of them at a very good price. They're brand new. They're probably discontinued ends of lines, things like that, but that's fine. So I, of course, was checking out those aisles of these items, and I found a few things to buy. I couldn't resist. Now, the things that I bought are more or less consumable items, meaning that I can use them up as I develop mixed media pages or like some of the projects I've been doing with the iCraft products. So I just thought I'd quickly show you what I got. I got a box of K & Company butterflies. It says 25 pieces in here for $1.79. All the prices are Canadian, of course. These go in the store when you get them in like a Michael's or something like that, from $5.99 up to $8.99, sometimes more depending on what's in them. So that's why I had to get it, because that was a good price. And of course, you know I love butterflies, at least butterfly embellishments. So I got another package of butterfly die cuts. Actually, I bought two. One looks like this, one looks like this. $1.19 a package. Now, this particular brand I have seen in dollar stores as well, but it's hit and miss in the dollar store whether you would get exactly these or not. So for $1.19 a piece, and they're not necessarily $1 in the dollar store, as you know, could be $1.25, could be $1.50, could be $2. Dollar in their name is just a reference point, I guess, these days. But that's a pretty good deal. And how many is in each package? 32 pieces in a package. So that's pretty good for $1.19. So again, couldn't resist. Some more butterflies. These are metal embellishments. Again, $1.39. Same company as those butterfly die cuts. And they had some of these flowers in metal. I like using metal in mixed media pieces. And again, $1.49 for those. So I think those were good prices. I did buy some wood chip pieces. I always like to have those around. Laser cut ones. These ones were at $1.19, but marked down to 69 cents. And this is little like at symbols and symbols and things like that. Another one that did cost me, it wasn't marked down to 69 cents, was $1.19. Leaves, but also something that I will use. And again, I bought some wood cut, laser cut butterflies, 18 in the package for $1.19. Same company, so can't go wrong. I picked up some little three-dimensional labels, 59 cents for this, 99 cents for this. That's the other thing. You would think, you know, these are both very much the same. They have different words on them, but the same idea. So why is one 99 and one is 59? Have no idea. But I grabbed them. Sometimes it helps too to look, depending on how they're on display in the shelf. If you look in behind some of them, one might say 99 cents. You'll find the identical one for a lesser price, because I don't know, maybe it has to do with when they came into the store. One time they thought they were going to be 99 cents a piece, and then later on it was cheaper. They put them at 59, but the older ones didn't get the price changed on it. So if you hunt a little bit, sometimes you can find the same product for less price in these kinds of stores. And then I bought some lace borders, $1.29. Both are basically the same. One's in white, one's in beige or off-white. Just trim. And they're always nice to have too for a mixed media project. Now, a few years ago, I saw people doing canvases, but in mixed media, and I've done many of those myself. But they were doing them on round canvases, so I went looking for round canvases. Now, mind you, this is a couple of years ago. Couldn't find any anywhere here. In fact, the first place where I saw some round canvases was in a store somewhere in our travels in Australia, and they weren't particularly cheap. And on top of it, I didn't want to try and get them in my suitcase and get them home. I mean, if they'd been like 99 cents or something like that, I probably would have tried it. But they weren't. They were, I forget, at the time, I think they were like 11 or 12 or 15 bucks for them, depending on the size. Well, the surplus store had round ones. They had small ones, $2.49, and they had larger ones, $2.99. I only bought these two. I might kick myself later, but I don't know when I'll get around to using these anyways. They're going to sit on a shelf for quite a while until, you know, I get inspired, and then I'll probably work with them. But in fact, I almost left them on the shelf and thought, well, you know, really? And I thought, well, yeah, but at that price, what the heck? Pick them up. So I did. So those were my finds at the surplus store. And as I said, that was just, that whole amount you just saw there cost me about $30 by the time I was done. No, it was even less than that, because I bought a couple of other things that were like some tweezers and things that Walter wanted. and so that put the price up a bit. So I think I spent maybe about 25 bucks in for all of that. So that's a pretty good haul for that price. Okay, so moving on. What's next? I'm just looking at my notes here. All right, book of the week from my stash of books. It's an old one. I've had it for quite a while. You can't get this book. Why am I showing it to you? Because there's probably other books out there that deal with the same topic, and they might help to inspire you. And who knows, maybe you will find this, but I could not find this on Amazon. I could not find it on eBay. I even went to the company that published it. They don't seem to have it at all as well. But this is what it is. It's called Fiber Frenzy, and it's by Heather Brooks and Sharon Nina Bar. And basically, I don't know if you remember, if you've been doing scrapbooking or card making, crafting for quite a while, way back, and I'm talking when I first got into scrapbooking, which was in 2002, there was all these fibers you could buy. And basically they were fuzzy little pieces of wool or whatever, embroidery type cottons in wild colors and all this kind of stuff. And I amassed quite a collection of them. And they were nice little embellishment to put on a page, frame a picture or have it hanging off to the side somewhere. And I continue to use fibers in some of my mixed media projects. But this little book I must have bought way back then when I first got into this for ideas, because I was new to all of this at the time. So I had books. I was picking up books on every aspect that I could find. But in this, it gives you some ideas with how to use your fibers. Yes, with tags, but you can use them as background enhancements. You can use them as frames, I already mentioned. You can do string art with them, kind of a thing, do abstract designs. You can even paint with them as well. And so this book gives lots of great ideas. Now, I apologize for the fact that I can't find this book anywhere, where to get it. However, I know there are other books out there, or even things on the web that show you how to use fibers in a creative way. And if you go to any store that sells wool, knitting products, you will find a wide variety of fiber type things that you can pick up, usually fairly inexpensively. So if you've never tried to use fiber in a mixed media piece or scrapbook or card making kind of idea, you might want to consider it, because it adds texture, it adds color, and it just gives whatever you're creating just an extra dimension of creativity to it. So the name again is Fiber Frenzy, and if you're interested, the scrapbook website that this came from is called scrapbooksally, all one word.com. And maybe if you really want this book, I paid $15.22 for it. Have no idea what it would cost today. You might want to look at that site and see, maybe I missed something, or maybe send them an email or something like that if you're really that interested in it. Okay, moving on. So talking about creating things. All right, I finished up last week, the last episode in the iCraft kit that created the the box scrapbook. Yeah, I think that's what it was, the box scrapbook. Yeah, this week I'm going to start featuring this one, iCraft's diary scrapbook. And so here's the first installment of this project. So I have here another iCraft kit. This one's called the Diary Scrapbook, and you have a picture of it here. Now, this one did not come with 3 different little scrapbooks. It only came with 2. Came with one in black cardstock and one in craft cardstock. And on the back, it does show you what it's supposed to look like once you have it decorated and laid out. And it has these dimensions again, which from previous kits, I'm just ignoring that pretty much completely because I find these not accurate at all. One thing that came in this kit was an instruction sheet. However, this instruction sheet is extremely confusing. Part of the reason I found that it's confusing is the instructions are not in the best English, although you can pretty much figure it out. And the pictures, they use the craft. And it is very difficult to see where they are attaching pieces in some of these diagrams. I did go to their website or to their YouTube channel, and when you know, this one did not have a video showing you how to put it together. So I was really left up to my own devices to figure this out. So I put the black one together. The craft one is the same except in craft. I'm going to save that for the next segment because I think I'll decorate this before I assemble it. And you'll see the reason why in a moment for that. Although you could probably decorate any of their products before you assemble them if that made things easier for you. Okay, so I'm going to show you the assembly. Now the first thing I found that was very helpful was this little diagram here that shows you all the pieces that the kit contains. They show this on the back as well, but quite frankly, this is very confusing. It has all of the measurements for everything, but unlike this diagram, it doesn't label these pieces. So you're really not sure which one is which. So what I did first of all was I took all the pieces out of the package and I laid them out on my craft table as you see here. And then I labeled them. And I wrote on them with a white Signaball pen. Now this one I have assembled, but I'm going to explain this in a minute. But you can see I wrote the different pieces according to the diagram onto this. And I found that very helpful. This will now become my prototype. I mentioned in one of my other videos that it's kind of nice that they give you several of these to work with because it's best to practice putting one together before you put together a final version. Okay, so they have a base piece, and I'm just going to sort of open this up. And the base piece they're referring to is this long piece right here without any of this stuff on it. And it's got score lines on it, as all of their parts do. And it tells you in this first instruction, step 1, fold the score lines towards the center of the base. Well, basically it's just folding the score lines. Okay, that was easy enough to do. This is where I started to get confused. It says, attach pocket 11, there's pocket 11 there, to the left of the base 1, base 1's this long piece, or next score line. Okay, here's where I mentioned the broken English. Okay, or next score line. I think what they meant to say was attach pocket to the left of the base along or next to the score line. Problem is, they don't identify which way this base should go. Now, I guess it doesn't really matter because it looks about the same, but it says to attach pocket 11 to the left of the base along or next score line. This took a little figuring out. I did look down here at several of the other diagrams, more advanced, and on the back, which did not help at all, but on the back of the packaging, there is a picture of the final scrapbook opened up. And it's a little difficult to see, but I think the pocket they are referring to is this one in behind these little tags. And I'll move it up a little closer. See behind these, which this does not have any of these, by the way. I think this is the pocket. So what they're doing is they're putting it on the inside left flap and they're lining it up with the first score line on the spine. That's the way I interpret it, and that's the way I did it. So here it is, the left pocket, and the pockets have little score lines for folding them in. So you can put tape down this side, and along here, and I lined it up with that score line and put it in, and now I have a pocket. Okay, so far so good. The next one says attach flap 2 as shown on the top on the base. Again, we have the broken English. Again, the diagram, as you can see,
her hands are in the way in a lot of these pictures, which doesn't help either. Plus, it's light on light, so you can't really distinguish very clearly tops and bottoms and where the score lines are, especially. So, again, I looked at the picture on the box, and it shows this section here next to where the pocket is, and it looks like it's a what we call a waterfall or cascading set of flaps. So I know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 flaps, and so I pulled them out and I labeled them flap 1, flap 3, or flap 2, sorry, flap 3, flap 4, flap 5. This is their numbering system. And it said to attach flap 2 to the top. So I did, right along there. And then it says, similarly, attach all 4 one below the other. So basically, I've had experience making what they call waterfall or cascading flaps. So I know you just butt one up next to the one ahead of it along where it's glued down. So I did that with all of these. So that went along okay. Then it says in step 5, attach belt 10 as shown to secure all layers. Okay, so I looked on my diagram here and I found belt 10, and it looked like this. Had a score line, so I just closed those down. I put a little double-sided tape. I'm using double-sided tape for this, and that goes up here like this. Now I did make it a little crooked, so I need to kind of rescore it. It's very difficult on the black to see the score lines, by the way, where you're lining things up. And this is supposed to go according to the picture here, right here. That's the piece we're talking about. Goes up there. Now, it doesn't hold very well. Okay, these flap up. It might as time goes by, but when you get a few items in here, this is going to, you know, rise up a little bit. So I might have to figure out a way to secure that, possibly a magnet. And this is one of the reasons why I am not putting the craft one together yet, until I cut out my background papers, because I think it would be easier to put the background papers on all of this before you get this lined up. And if you want to put in a magnet, then you can hide the magnet under here, and away you go. Okay, next one. Attach pocket as shown, pocket 8 as shown. So I look up here, pocket 8 was a long, thin one. And again, I had to carefully look at this diagram. Again, you can see, okay, how badly the picture is of this, because it's light on light. So she's got her fingers here, so it looks like this is where the pocket goes. And the only logical sense it would make is to put it this way, so the pocket opens out here, and that's what I did. It attaches the same as a pocket 11 on this side, this side, this side, and just dropped it in. So I have my pocket. So that's done. Step 7 says attach the flaps 6 and 7 as shown on opposite sides to each other. Flaps 6 and 7 in the diagram are these two little flaps right here. And again, I looked at her diagram. Now the diagram here is making, or the picture is making some sense, because you get a reference point with the pocket 8 and with the flaps down here. So we're just working our way from left to right. So we're on the last flap of the base, and there's flap 6, there's flap 7. Okay, again, these really don't hold down very well, but we'll see. So that takes us, she says, now, in step 8, completed scrapbook, open flaps and pockets can be varied to your needs. So basically, I guess what she means is you could put these in here any way that suits you. Or maybe she means you can use these for whatever you want to put in them. Pictures, memorabilia, journaling. I don't know. So we flip over the instruction sheet. Yes, because there's more. It shows you the closed position 1. So closed position 1 looks like that flap goes over here, and this flap goes over here. Okay, so there we go. That's closed position 1. And then closed position 2 in step 10. Brings those two together. Now here you have the spines. So this gives it a little bit of depth. And you may have to fool around with getting those just right. But there it is. Okay. Now step 11. Adhere the belts as shown. Now it says belts as shown. So there's these two. But in the diagram, it showed a belt 10, which is what they said we should attach in step 5 to those flaps. And then it shows a belt 12. And there is only one belt left over, yet I have two belt 12s. Now on the back of this, I'm looking at, it tells you the number of pieces. So that's our base. And that looks like it's the flaps on the inside. And this looks like it could be a belt. Or maybe, I don't know. This I find very difficult to correspond with this. It might have helped if they had written on here what they wrote here, like flap number 2, flap number 3, etc. So the only thing I can think of, because again, I looked at the back of this, it shows one belt coming around from behind. See, the same thing here. And in this, they only show you using one belt. It says adhere belts as shown. I think they meant adhere belt. And it looks like on the back side, once you've got these score lines folded up, you are attaching this to the back. This wraps around. See, and it's about the right size on the edge. I know that's very difficult to see, black on black. And there you have a belt. But how does this belt secure? So this is where I think I need another magnet. And again, because I have to add magnets and these other pieces, I'm not going to put together the craft one until I have cut out all the background papers, and I'll hear the background papers as I go along. I think that'll make things a little easier. There is one piece left over. I have no idea what this piece is. Now I've labeled it as tag 9 because, according to this diagram, that's the only piece that's left over, and it says right here, tag 9. But nowhere in here does it say what to do with tag 9. However, I did notice there is, when we put those two flaps, let me open this up so you can see. When we put these two flaps in here, it looks like on the package, right here, that those two flaps have this flap attached here. So let me do this. Can't do it one-handed. Like that. Okay. Now, it does it looks like it's showing here, that almost looks like that could be a brad. However, it looks like it's, like I would think, okay, so use a brad, and I would secure it to the top of this one. It's still not going to hold it shut. Or it's just glued this way. Maybe if it's glued down that way, I guess it would hold. Or you could put in a magnet. Again, another magnet. This particular kit, I think, lends itself to a lot of magnets. So I have not attached this yet because, one, I have to decorate it with background papers, and here as well, so it'd be too difficult if I attached already to put the background papers here. And I have to decide how this is going to work as a closure. So, the one thing I'll say about this kit is it certainly tests your creativity, because the combination of the instructions and the pieces that you have make this very confusing. So I guess you're left to your own devices when it comes to putting it together. Now, I do have an extra belt. I might use this somewhere on this. I don't know, so I'm not going to get rid of it yet. So, in the next segment, I will show you how I'm going to attach my background papers to the craft one and put it together. I think it's going to be really cute when it's done. All of their kits are really cute when they're done. My only complaint is the instructions are not that clear. That's the reason I'm making this video. Okay, so we'll move on in the next segment to putting the background papers onto this.
So that takes us to events in the past week. Well, yes, this weekend we did my birthday weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, update on my mother. She had an outing. She went to a winery in our area, and she had a great time. They had lunch. They had a bit of a wine tasting. I think they gave them a glass of a sparkling white that they make at this particular spot, and a sparkling red. My mother thought the wines were wonderful. She thought the food they had at lunch, I think they had a chicken pot pie or something like that. My mother seems to claim that the pastry was excellent that it was in, and they had a nice salad with it, and the salad had a homemade dressing that she thought was just wonderful. And then for dessert, they had apple pie and ice cream. And again, she thought the pie crust, the pastry was just absolutely out of this world. She was just glowing about this place. And I'm glad. I'm really glad that she got out. She had a really good day, because I was really afraid. I knew she was signing up for it, but I was really afraid at the last minute she'd cancel out. And nope, she didn't, and that's great. That opens the door up to go on other outings that are outside of the nursing home, and that's great for her. I mean, we would take her out more, but we can't actually do that because of her condition. Getting her in a car, getting the wheelchair in the car is next to impossible, because my mother does not cooperate when you try to get her in the car. She just, it's dead weight. Okay, my mother's not a very big woman, but nevertheless. And then the problem is, if you get her out, if she has to go to the washroom, she does need some assistance, and I can't give that assistance. So having these kind of events where the staff go with them, the staff are trained, they're prepared, they know what to do in all cases like this to make the outing enjoyable for them, and also to look after their personal needs, that's great. And I think it only cost about $30, which I think was really reasonable, because they got 2 glasses of wine. I asked my mother, were they? She said, oh, they were quite big. So whatever, you go to a restaurant and you can pay anywhere from $8 to $12, sometimes more, depending on the wine, for a glass. So, at $8 a glass, she had 2 of them. That's $16 out of her $30 right there. So $14 for lunch. Well, where can you go? You can't even go. Well, you can go to McDonald's for under $14. But if you go as 2 people, it costs you the more. But either way, it depends on what you eat. So, and it's McDonald's. Okay, this place is a lot better than that. So I think it was worth every cent. And she was just glowing. We were just over there today on our way back home to see her, and she was talking about it some more. So she had a darn good time, and if my mother's happy, I'm happy. So that was great. Although this is kind of funny. At first it wasn't that funny, but it was funny. So on Friday night, I think it was around about 9 o'clock, I get a phone call on my cell phone. Now we are in this place that we spent the weekend in. It's a town called Cambridge, and my cell phone rings, and it's the nursing home, and I went, oh God. First thing when I see that come up on my phone, I think the worst. Oh, she's dead. She's fallen. They've taken her to the hospital. Everything that goes through my head. Well, luckily it was none of those things. Apparently, they couldn't find my mother's bottom dentures. Well, what happened was they came in and gathered up the clothes for the laundry, and they took it all down to the laundry room. When they came back in, my mother went, oh, she says, I think I left my teeth wrapped up in a Kleenex in the pocket of my pants. So they went down to the laundry to look for them, did not find them. So the staff were letting me know about the situation. Now, I did suggest to them a couple of places they might be. Did you look through her drawers? Did you look in her bed? Because there have been a few things gone missing that are in her bed, get caught up in the sheets, that kind of thing. And they said they had. Well, I said, well, okay, maybe they'll show up. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm 2 hours away from her, and even if I got there, if I can't find them, what am I going to do? 5 minutes later, the phone rings again. Same staff member. they found my mother's teeth. I guess my mother said, oh, well, maybe they're sitting in my wheelchair. Yeah, that's where they were. They were sitting in her wheelchair. So we found the teeth, which is a good thing considering that she's only had them for about 2 weeks and she spent $3,100 on these teeth, which she's not wearing, as I found out today. They were adjusted last week by the denturist, and I said to her, so how's your teeth? Well, I don't have them in today. And I thought, oh yeah, here we go. And I said, are they hurting you? Yeah, well, yeah. And I says, well, are they not feeling any better now that they've been adjusted? Well, not really. I said, okay, well, I'll give the denturist a call and see if he can come out and do some more fine tuning. But the problem is, I don't doubt that they do hurt. I'm sure they do. They probably rub, but all of that, and we were told to expect this by the denturist. I think the whole thing with my mother is she just doesn't want to wear them. I think they're a bit of a pain in the butt to put in and a bit of a pain in the butt to take out. I mean, she's got to get used to doing that. She's only had them for 2 weeks. But I know what's going to happen. She's not going to wear them. Simple as that. So there we go, $3,100 down the drain. Well, it's her money. But what can I do? I can't force her to wear them. So we'll see. I told her, well, I'll give them a call, see if they can come out and do some more fine tuning and everything like that. But I know it won't. Yeah, they'll come out. They'll do what they can for her. I know that. But she just won't wear them. Just simple as that. Welcome to my world. But I knew that was probably going to happen. So there you go. Okay, so we it was my birthday. Have I told you it was my birthday? It was my birthday. Yeah, it was my birthday. Okay, enough of that. So we had planned this for a while. I had gotten tickets to see Little Shop of Horrors. Here's the playbill to prove it. On stage in a town called Stratford. Stratford is famous here in Ontario for its annual Shakespearean festival that runs from the beginning of the spring until the late fall. And they have several theaters in this town. It's not a very big town, but it's that this festival is their claim to fame. And it used to be it was all strictly just Shakespeare, but now they do Shakespeare and they do other plays as well. And Little Shop of Horrors is one of those. Now, I have seen Little Shop of Horrors on stage before, and I have seen the movie. I love Little Shop of Horrors, so that's why I want to see this. So we had matinee tickets for Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We were 3 rows from the front. It was excellent. We had excellent seats, but I had ordered these tickets back in March. Cheap? No. About $180 a seat, but well worth it. It was an excellent production. We enjoyed it thoroughly, and the whole weekend was a great weekend. We did all the quilt stores in that area pretty much. We did 10 of them over the period of, we went up Friday morning, and so we did stop at a couple of places on the way to our final destination of Cambridge. And yeah, I spent a lot of money, but I got a lot of fabric. Every store we went to, I didn't walk away without something. I think they liked seeing me in there too. I don't know if they were phoning each other ahead and said, watch out for this guy because he's going to drop some major cash on the store today. But, you know, it was my birthday. And I had planned for this. So it's not like, you know, I'm going to have to eat craft dinner, although I do like craft dinner, for the next month and a half. Walter took me out for dinner on last night. So we went to the Keg. The Keg is a very popular steakhouse chain here in Canada. We really like the Keg, and it happens to be Lobster Fest right now. So we got the Surf and Turf, which was an 8-ounce sirloin steak with half a whole lobster. You cut the little sucker right down the middle, so you get a claw and you get a half of the tail. And they were quite large as well. Excuse me. A fair amount of lobster meat in them. So that was really good. And we also had an appetizer. I got my escargot. They make great escargot at this particular chain of restaurants. Walter, I think, got the lobster gratin, I don't know, lobster with cheese kind of stuff in it. It was kind of lobster. Well, it was a lobster fest. And of course, we had a drink before dinner, and we had a bottle of wine. And then, of course, this particular restaurant usually asks you, are you celebrating a special occasion? And I went, it's my birthday, it's my birthday, it's my birthday. And so I knew that they would give us a free dessert. And the free dessert they give you is something they call Jack Miner pie, which is an ice cream cake kind of thing. It's mostly ice cream with sauces on it, and it probably is 3 million calories. And I don't care because it was my birthday. And so we enjoyed that. Of course, Walter said, well, I don't, you eat it, because they always bring you a couple of spoons, right? And he says, because I'm too full, I don't. Yeah, he ate half of it. So I knew he would. And that was fine. So yeah, that was really nice. And Walter gave me a nice a nice birthday present as well. He gave me a little cash as well. So yeah, it was an expensive weekend, but it was planned for, and we had a really good time. It was great. So moving on, what's coming up? Okay, well, rest of the week's kind of anticlimactic after that. I'm taking another one of my quilts in to the long arm to do the quilting on it. I've got about 3 quilts that need to all be quilted, and I'm trying to get them all done before the end of the summer, so I can move on to new projects. And these are quilts that I'm going to put into, at least that's my plan right now, unless I botch the quilting up, into our guild's quilt show for November. I'm actually taking, you remember the big black and white one that I showed you, the one that had the over 420 half square triangles, the one I called the quilt from hell on that? Well, there was one flaw. A row, I think I mentioned it to you. I missed a row somehow when I was quilting it. So I was mentioning this last week when I took the show quilt that I just showed you in to quilt it to the lady who owns the long arm quilting store, and said to her, yeah, that missed that, but I guess nobody will notice. And she says, bring it back in. She says, I can show you how to fix that. It's easy. And I said, well, I've got it already bound. And she says, not a problem. We can work around that. So I'm taking that in on Wednesday. We'll fix that up. And that's good, because it's really been bugging me. But bothers Walter even more than me. But it's been bugging me too, because it's one that I am putting into the quilt show. They're not being judged, those ones, as far as I know. But nevertheless, there'll be some eagle eye out there will spot that and go, you missed a row, you missed a row. Well, I don't think they'd be that cruel to say that out loud. They'd probably wait till they got home. At least that's what I would do. But anyways, so I'll get that fixed, and I'll start quilting the next one, and I'll show you the results of that probably next week on the vlog, if I get the other one bound by then. Okay, so that's what's coming up. Can't think of anything else. So this coming Sunday, we are planning to do Stephen and Walter live, regular time, 4 o'clock Eastern, and hope you can join us. And we'll talk a little bit more about the weekend, but we're also going to talk about stupid things that people do that make them look stupid. And that includes ourselves as well. But you know, the kind of things like when you're driving, you see a lot of stupid things drivers do, or when you're shopping, you see a lot of stupid things people do in the shops. Just general stupid people things. So that's what we're going to talk about on Sunday. So hope to see you then, and watch for my couple of idiot quilter videos I'm going to be putting up later this week, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye for now.